Hello guys, in this video I'm gonna show you how you can create your first grid in CSS. So we'll take a look how we can define our grid by defining rows and columns. And for the grid there are two main items for grids, and that items are the container and the items, or you can say the elements inside the grid. As you can see here, I have created a simple grid in my video. 1 2 3 4, these are 4 items in my grid, and this container is my grid. So we'll see how we can do that. So it's just a static HTML file, and I'm writing CSS in the head tag of the HTML file. As you can see here, HTML and body, I have given the background color and the margin 10 pixels. So let's dive into this and let's see how we can actually create our first CSS grid. Let's get started. So what I have done here is I have taken 4 elements, 4 items inside my grid. That is my container class, and I'll use this container class here, and I'll say display grid, right? And the second attribute we need to use for defining our grids is grid template rows, and I'll say 100 pixels, and the second one should be auto. So it should not rows, it should be columns. Sorry for that, right? What I'm saying here is I want 2 columns inside my grid. As you can see here, the 2 columns have been can be shown, can be seen on the screen, right? There are 2 columns and there are 4 boxes and there are 2 rows. So I want the first column to be 100 pixels, the width should be 100 pixels of the first column, and the second one should be auto, right? So the next attribute, the next thing which we need to use inside our grid is grid template rows, right? You are saying that you want 2 rows, and how much gap you are going to provide between these 2 rows. In my case, I am providing only 50 pixels of space between these 2 rows of my grid. As you can see here, the first column should be 100 pixels wide and the second one should be auto. You can see here the second and 4 are auto, and I want the 50 pixels width between the 2 rows, right? So, and I also want the grid gap, right? The gap you can see here between the columns and the rows, right? Between the columns you can see here grid gap. I'm using 3 pixels as a gap between the 2 items inside my grid, inside my CSS grid. So this is all about the container grid. Let's move to the next thing, and that is the container, the div inside the container, right? So I'll say display flex, and I'll say justify content or align items, to the center, not content, center, and justify content should also be set to center, right? And also I want the font size to be 2em, and the color should be let me copy from here. The color should be this one, right? So let's copy this style, let's paste it here. So what I'm telling here, what I'm typing here is, what I'm giving here is display should be flex for the div, this div inside the container grid, and I'm saying that the justify content should be center, and align items should also be set to center. Font size is 2em and the color is this one. So this is all about the div item inside our grid, and let's actually give the background colors to these 4 items, right? So for that we can give container and nth child, right? So you might be wondering what I am doing here is I am using the CSS technique to give the background color to the items inside our grid, right? What I'm defining here is I'm saying that inside my container I want the first item, the div item, nth child of 1, right? So for this I'm gonna use the background color, this one, right? Hash this one. So let's actually copy down this container, this technique, this CSS, paste it here 4 times because we have 4 elements, 4 items inside our grid. Let's change this to second, that is for the second element, third, and the last one should be 4. Let's change the colors, right? For the second one I am using this color, background color, and third one, and last but not the least, this one, right? So let's save it and let's run inside the browser to see it works or not, right? When I hit refresh, it is working and even it is responsive, as you can see here. If I minimize my browser, the first column is set to 100 pixels and the second one is set to auto, and the template rows gap is 50 pixels, you can see here. And if I set to 100 pixels, you may see some changes, as you can see here. The rows, right, 50 pixels, which it is 100 pixels now, right? And I'll use 50 pixels here for the first row, and for the second row I'll use 200 pixels. That is the height of the column, that is the height of the row, right? So save it and let's see in the browser. You can see here the first row is 50 pixels and the second row is 200 pixels. So I'll use only 50 pixels, means both rows will be of 50 pixels, right? And the grid gap is 3 pixels. I can make it 10 pixels, and let's see the preview inside the browser. You can see here the 10 pixels can be seen between the grid items. I'll make it to 3, right? It should be flex the div item, the element inside the grid container. And this is all about the CSS grid which we have created. This is our first CSS grid, and hope you understand and hope you like it. And don't forget to subscribe my channel and also share this video with your friends. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you soon.